I supported Ethan for 7 years, and I loved him for 7 years. He finally agreed to be with me. But later, I found out he loved his childhood sweetheart. He had always hated me, feeling I used money to crush and humiliate him. After 10 years of marriage, he treated me with extreme coldness, eventually moving out to start a new family with his childhood sweetheart. And I guarded an empty house, wasting away until I died. Reborn again on the day I decided to support him, Ethan's childhood sweetheart threw herself onto him, shouting at me agitatedly, "So what if you have money? We don't care." I smiled. "You're thinking too much. I'd rather burn this money than support either of you." Seeing Chloe clinging to Ethan, I felt a bit dazed, my gaze meeting Ethan's. 20-year-old Ethan still had a boyish look, dressed in faded denim. Yet he was so strikingly handsome, tall and lean with strong features and eyes like cold stars, that he made even those worn clothes look expensive. I couldn't help but take a step back, steadying myself against the table behind me. How long had it been since I'd seen Ethan like this? 10 years? Or 20? Too long, I couldn't remember clearly. After all, that was a lifetime ago. Ethan noticed me step back, slightly startled. Chloe was still chattering endlessly, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. Everything before me was exactly like my past life. It was just like this back then. He refused my support, but I insisted on giving it. I had loved Ethan for 7 years. I knew his family situation was bad. His father was a compulsive gambler who, after losing all his money, would come home drunk and beat him and his mother. Unable to bear the torment, Ethan's mother eventually drowned herself. From a young age, Ethan scavenged, did odd jobs, and relied on applying for financial aid to get through school. We shouldn't have crossed paths. However, his grades were always excellent, so our private high school gave him a scholarship for the sake of its graduation rates, and that's how we ended up in the same high school. Back then, my circle consisted of rich kids, heirs and heiresses who didn't care about studying, just drifting through their days, waiting to get some easy degree abroad before coming home to inherit the family business. Only Ethan was different. He had clear goals, studied hard in class, and worked after school. Even though he was poor, he never acted ashamed, always carrying himself with dignity. That's when I fell for him. I loved him, so I couldn't bear to see him suffer. Young and foolish back then, I always self-righteously pushed things I thought were good onto him. He had to work nights and couldn't grab breakfast in the morning, so I brought him lunchboxes from home. "Ethan, my family's chef makes the best Wagyu beef, try it. And the foie gras, my dad had it flown in specially, it's delicious." Back then, I was the only daughter, spoiled rotten since birth. Everyone around me doted on me, making me utterly clueless. I just wanted to give him the best, but I completely ignored whether he wanted it. The classmates around us jeered, "Sophia, what does he know about foie gras? Ha ha ha, he probably can't even afford chicken liver." I yelled at them, "None of your damn business." I didn't see Ethan's white-knuckled grip on the lunchbox, his fingers bloodless. He paused for a moment, then handed the lunchbox back to me, saying coldly, "Thank you for the kind thought, but no thanks." "Don't be like that, Ethan," one of the boys smirked. "If you get together with Sophia, you won't have to struggle for the rest of your life. Hurry up and latch onto her. Yeah, then your dad can gamble as much as he wants. No need to eye your tuition money anymore. Ha ha ha." Everyone roared with laughter. I slammed the table. "All of you, shut up." The others didn't dare laugh anymore. But Ethan suddenly stood up and turned to leave. I chased after him, trying to stuff the lunchbox into his hands. "Ethan, don't listen to their nonsense. Just eat this, otherwise you have work tonight, your body won't handle it." He stopped, whipping around abruptly. I froze. His eyes were filled with pure hatred and disgust. Teenagers have terrible memories. I soon forgot about that incident and continued to pursue Ethan. For him, I even started studying hard and got into the same university. My dad was overjoyed and doubled my allowance. University Ethan was even busier. He didn't get the financial aid he applied for, and the hardship grant spot was snatched by a classmate with family connections. At his lowest point, he could only afford one steamed bun from the cafeteria each day, filling up on free soup. I couldn't stand watching it and offered to support him, but he refused. He worked 3 jobs a day and eventually even collapsed from exhaustion on the street. That's when I couldn't take it anymore, grabbed him, and insisted on giving him money. "Ethan, why won't you take my money? What's the point of working yourself to death like this?" I went to his academic advisor and forcefully paid his tuition. By then, I'd matured a bit, understanding the need to respect his pride. So, I'd always drag him along for meals, saying I couldn't finish my food and needed him to help. When going out, I'd always claim I'd snagged free tickets and pull him along. Slowly, it seemed Ethan and I were getting closer. I supported him like this until he graduated, even funding his childhood sweetheart, Chloe, who grew up with him, just to make him happy. After graduation, Ethan started his own business. His grades were always excellent, and he'd developed a game with friends during school, but they hit walls everywhere, unable to secure any investment no matter what. I couldn't bear seeing him so dejected, so I simply asked my dad to invest in him. I remember Ethan was very silent that night. As I leaned against his shoulder, almost asleep, he suddenly spoke. "Sophia, why are you doing this?" Back then, I thought he meant why are you so good to me, so I replied smugly, because I like you. "Ethan, do you like me?" I tugged at his arm playfully. "I've been so good to you, if you still don't get together with me, you're a real heartless jerk." I was actually just joking then. But Ethan didn't say anything, and I took his silence as agreement. We started dating just like that. 2 years later, Ethan and I got married. The wedding was a rushed affair. Ethan said he didn't like crowds, so we only invited a few tables of close relatives and friends. They were all my relatives and friends. From his side, there was only him. After marriage, Ethan remained cold towards me. I was truly foolish back then, thinking that was just his personality. I had chased him for so many years. I believed if I continued being good to him, even a heart of stone would melt. But I never expected his heart truly wouldn't melt. Because his heart had always belonged to someone else. In the 3rd year of our marriage, the conflicts between us became irreconcilable. I started being unable to tolerate his day-after-day coldness. I questioned if he liked his childhood sweetheart. He just looked at me coldly, saying nothing. When pushed too hard, he'd simply slam the door and leave. His silent treatment drove me increasingly paranoid and frantic. Whenever he came back, I'd interrogate him, curse him. During our most heated arguments, I lashed out without thinking. "If I knew you were such an ungrateful bastard, I would have raised a dog instead. At least it would know how to wag its tail at me." His expression turned vicious for a moment, then quickly calmed. After that day, he stopped coming home altogether. Only later did I find out he had already gotten together with his childhood sweetheart. They had a new home outside, and even a child. During those years, he had a complete and happy family outside. While I guarded a lonely home, my heart full of love festered into a poison steeped in hatred. Ethan's business succeeded, he became richer than my dad. I had nothing left to retaliate with. The only thing I had was my marriage. I gambled my own life to spite him. I refused to divorce him, no matter how much money he offered. He ruined me, and I wouldn't let him have it easy. The woman he loved could only ever be the other woman, hidden away. His son with another woman could only ever be a bastard child, kept in the shadows. Ethan didn't dare sue for divorce either. He was afraid the public dispute would affect his company's stock price, and the other board members wouldn't agree. Just like that, we were locked in this stalemate for 10 years. During these 10 years, no matter how hysterical or crazy I became, even eventually softening and begging him, he never showed any mercy, never came back to see me. I wasted away day by day in despair, falling gravely ill. Finally, I died alone and heartbroken. "Sophia?" I snapped back to reality, looking at Ethan beside me. A profound hatred surged from deep within my bones, my heart felt like it would explode, and for a moment, I almost couldn't stand. After I died, he finally got his wish, didn't he? Perhaps, treating me like that was his way of wearing me down until I died sooner. I remembered before I died, my medication was suddenly switched. When I asked the housekeeper, he just said it was a milder medicine. I didn't suspect anything. However, not long after taking this medicine, my health deteriorated rapidly, until I couldn't even sit up. Soon after, I breathed my last. It was him, wasn't it? Who else could it be, hating me so much, wishing I would drop dead immediately? He wanted to put Chloe in my place. How vicious. Looking at Ethan, I forcibly suppressed the urge to rush over and kill him. How I hated him. I believed, aside from being clueless and not considerate enough of his pride when I was younger, I had never wronged Ethan in any way. I didn't even force him into marriage. I even asked him if he was willing, saying I could wait longer if he wasn't. Yet he hated me like this. Chloe was still shrieking at me like in the past life, "Sophia, so what if you have money? Why are you insulting people like this?" I looked at her. She wore a white dress, appearing delicate, like a little white flower. This was the woman Ethan loved, the one he'd even kill me to put in his place. It was the same in the last life. Ethan and I were talking properly. I told him if he felt uncomfortable, he could pay back the tuition after earning money, treating it as a loan from me. But Chloe suddenly accused me of throwing money at people, saying I was insulting Ethan. Only later, during my arguments with Ethan, did I gradually understand. He had always felt I was using money to crush him, to humiliate him. Suddenly, I found it laughable. Seeing Chloe acting all protective, I curled my lip into a smile. You're thinking too much. I'd rather burn this money than support either of you. Ethan's face changed drastically. Chloe's expression went blank for a moment. What did you say? I smiled. Didn't you feel that me supporting you was an insult? We're classmates, how could I possibly insult you like that? Since that's the case, let's just forget it. You two should just keep working your part-time jobs. Chloe's family situation was similar to Ethan's. Her father ran off with borrowed money, and her mother worked herself sick to put her through school, now bedridden at home. Probably because of their similar circumstances, she and Ethan were always close, constantly hovering around him. She always liked to tag along when Ethan and I went out. Sometimes I didn't want her to, and she would hide behind him, asking me pitifully, Sophia, do you look down on me because I'm poor? Don't you want to be friends with me? Before I could speak, Ethan would shield her, saying gravely, if you think we're not good enough for you, then let's not go. So I had to bring her along. She was there during meals. She would tilt her head, looking at the lobster on the plate and say, do you eat fancy food like this every day? Then, her tone would become melancholic and envious, we really aren't from the same world. Several times, Ethan and I would be chatting happily, but she'd suddenly say something like that, and Ethan's smile would vanish, and he'd stop talking to me. At first, I thought she was just being tactless. Until one time Ethan and I were walking together, and I turned back suddenly to say something to him, only to catch the look in her eyes as she stared at me. Chloe's face was expressionless, but her eyes churned with malice and venom. Seeing me turn back, she was caught off guard and quickly forced a smile. But a chill ran down my spine. It was then I finally realized. She hated me. Or rather, she despised me. Actually, right after Ethan and I got married, we did have a brief period of harmony. His company had just gotten on track and landed its first major contract. After the celebration party, he drunkenly put his arm around me, smiling, honey, what do you like? Hubby will buy it for you. My heart ached thinking about how hard he worked for money, so I hugged him contentedly. No need, just knowing you thought of it makes me happy. But he insisted, craning his neck, hubby earns money for his wife to spend. I'll buy you a bag, what kind of bag do you like? Even as he fell asleep, he was still murmuring. Sophia, I have money now. You don't have to suffer with me anymore. Sure enough, he bought me a bag the next day. However, before I could even say anything, Chloe showed up. She looked at the bag in my hand, her expression suddenly strange. Then she snatched the bag from my hand, smiling at Ethan. Oh my, I remember Sophia had this bag back in college. A guy who liked her gave it to her. She even complained it was too cheap to carry back then. Honestly, I had long forgotten if that ever happened. But Ethan's expression immediately turned ugly. He took the bag and walked out without a word. After that, he started acting cold towards me. And the next time I saw that bag, it was on Chloe's shoulder. A smile played on her lips as she pretended to be nonchalant. Sophia, Ethan gave this bag to me. You're not angry, are you? Of course, I wasn't okay with it and told her to give it back. Panic flashed across her face, and her eyes reddened as she asked me, you already have so many bags, why do you have to fight me for this one? You have so many, and I only have this one. Ethan pulled me away with a dark face. Let go. Since you don't care about it, why fight her for it? Or do you just enjoy taking things from others? Back then, I was proud and arrogant, unable to stomach such humiliation, so we had a huge fight and parted on bad terms. Only later did I understand. Chloe wasn't talking about the bag. She was clearly talking about Ethan. She felt I had stolen him from her, which is why she hated me so much. Sophia, Ethan suddenly seemed panicked, grabbing my arm. Wait. I turned back, but froze for a moment when I saw his expression. Emotion swirled darkly in his eyes, like something was about to break free. Even his voice trembled slightly. No, this isn't right. Sophia, why aren't you supporting me anymore? Didn't you like me a lot? I was startled by his intensity. What was wrong with Ethan? Had he lost his mind? Or was he angry about my tone with Chloe? But in the last life, at this point, I hadn't won him over yet, and he was always extremely cold and serious towards me. Was he sick? I tried to pull my hand back, let go. But he gripped tighter, his eyes even turning a little red. Sophia, don't you like me anymore? Are you abandoning me? Now I was genuinely scared. When had Ethan ever spoken to me like this? My eyes widened. Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you? Did you take the wrong medicine, or are you possessed? He didn't speak, just stared straight at me, unblinking, his expression obsessive and frantic. My temper flared. He treated me so horribly in the last life, and now he dares glare at me? Didn't you feel humiliated by my support, Ethan? Or are you just shamelessly waiting for me to beg you, acting tough while expecting handouts? Chloe's mouth fell open, apparently shocked that I would talk to Ethan like this. Right, in the last life, this was when I liked him the most. Every word I spoke was careful, afraid of hurting his pride. But now, I didn't care anymore. Ethan, who the hell do you think you are? I scoffed. Heartless, treacherous, repaying kindness with cruelty. I wondered how I could have ever fallen for someone like him. Surprisingly, Ethan didn't get angry. The color just drained from his face, leaving it deathly pale. I yanked my hand away and left without looking back. The card I intended for Ethan held 200,000. Enough to cover his tuition and living expenses. I took the card straight to the mall. Giving him the money only brought trouble. I might as well buy myself a few more bags. In my previous life, apart from that one bag, Ethan never gave me anything else. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays. He never remembered. Or rather, never cared. Instead, Chloe transformed into a wealthy wife. She used Ethan's money to shop everywhere, spending hundreds of thousands on bags, watches, and clothes. Every time she bought something new, she'd flaunt it in front of me. Sophia, Ethan specially brought this back from Paris for me. What did he bring you? Don't tell me. She covered her mouth and giggled. He didn't bring you anything? Then I would have huge fights with Ethan, and our relationship would worsen. Thinking about it now, I'm so rich, why should I care about things a man buys me? I can buy whatever I want myself. With that 200,000, I bought 4 bags and even added another 100,000. On the way back to campus, maybe it was just bad luck, but as soon as I got out of the car, I saw Chloe and Ethan. When she saw the luxury shopping bags in my hands, her expression changed instantly, filled with unconcealed sourness and envy. At this point, Ethan was still penniless, and she was broke too. The white dress she wore was pilling, and although she had tried to trim the threads and iron it flat, a glance told you it was cheap stuff from a street stall. Sophia, you really have a lot of money. I realized Chloe was incredibly quick at changing faces. Just moments ago, she was calling me Sophia and yelling about my dirty money. Now she could call me Sophia. She stared intently at the Chanel bag in my hand, her fingers clenched tightly. A Chanel bag must be expensive. One of them costs more than several years of our tuition. She moved closer to Ethan, deliberately saying near him, we really aren't from the same world. Previously, when she said things like that, I would try to explain. But I was clumsy with words, and often the more I said, the unhappier Ethan became. Now, to hell with it. I smiled faintly. Looks like you're not just poor, but also slow. You're only realizing this now? My family lives in a 3,000 square foot penthouse downtown. You live in a tiny, rundown 300 square foot place on the outskirts of town. Of course, we're not from the same world. Chloe's face turned greenish, her features twisting for a moment. I walked over, facing her, and said word by word, Chloe, you will never be part of my world. Go ahead and be jealous till you die. Ethan. She quickly recovered, about to play the victim for Ethan. I scoffed. What can you do besides hide behind a man, like scum crawling out from under a rock? And don't bother looking to Ethan, you two are cut from the same cloth, equally disgusting. After cursing out that vile pair that day, I went home happy. It wasn't that I didn't want revenge. I still remembered the poisoning incident from my past life. But firstly, the poisoning hadn't happened yet in this life, so I had no proof. Secondly, I didn't want to ruin my life over trash like them anymore. Being tormented for a lifetime was painful enough. This life, I wanted to stay far away from this despicable pair. Whether they did well or poorly had nothing to do with me anymore. A new life, I wanted a fresh start. However, while I wanted to keep my distance, they seemed determined to haunt me. A few days later, a friend sought me out, gloating, you didn't give Ethan and Chloe money, and now they're in a real mess, can't even pay tuition. I heard Ethan's working like crazy outside, and Chloe tried to buy a new dress the other day, only $80, but couldn't scrape it together checking WeChat, Alipay, and her cards. She even had to sell that iPhone you bought her just to barely cover the tuition. It took me a while to remember that, in the previous life around this time, I had seen Ethan's phone was old and gifted him the latest iPhone. But the very next day, I saw that phone in Chloe's hands. I lowered my gaze, saying lightly with a touch of sarcasm, really? That's quite poor then. Before I could take 2 steps, Chloe blocked my path. She looked agitated, grabbing me angrily. Sophia, why did you stop supporting Ethan? Don't you know his GPA is #1 in his major? If he gets held back because of tuition, can you take responsibility for that? I was stunned at first, then almost laughed out loud in anger. In my past life, I eventually figured out what kind of people they were. Wanting others' money but too proud to admit it, complaining while benefiting. Utterly shameless. What does his ranking have to do with me? I shrugged. I'm not his mother. How can you say that? Classmates who knew us started gathering around. Chloe became even more animated, tears welling up in her eyes, playing the part of an innocent victim standing up to the bully. One of your bags could cover our tuition for years. What's wrong with supporting us a little? Or are you just that selfish, preferring to waste money rather than help those in need? She probably thought everyone was like Ethan, easily swayed by her shameless rhetoric. Before I could speak, my friend stepped in. Her family was as wealthy as mine, but her temper was much fiercer. She sneered at Chloe, which mental hospital left its doors unlocked and let you out, you idiot? If you want money, go beg. Or worse comes to worst, sell yourself. You're a bit ugly, but someone would probably pay $80. 10 times is 800, 100 times and you've got your tuition, right? You have arms, legs, kidneys, and genitals. Why do you have the nerve to ask others for money? Are they your parents? Chloe always played the innocent, manipulative type and hadn't encountered such blunt, aggressive cursing before. She was stunned speechless for a moment. Other students chimed in, yeah, if you don't have money, apply for financial aid. Asking people for money with such a bad attitude. Shameless. People like that deserve to be poor. Chloe stepped back, her eyes wide with disbelief. I sneered inwardly. I often treated classmates to bubble tea and paid for group meals, so naturally, they sided with me. Thinking about it now, besides Ethan, what did Chloe really have? She couldn't beat me in anything. If I hadn't been foolishly obsessed with Ethan in my past life, someone like her wouldn't have even entered my life. Just then, Ethan suddenly arrived. Ethan, Chloe seemed to have found her savior, leaning towards him, tears trembling in her eyes. I was just asking Sophia to support you a bit. She has money for so many bags but isn't willing to help you. I don't know how I offended her, she cursed me so harshly. Sophia, she immediately changed her tune, looking tearful. I know you look down on me, but I was just trying to help Ethan, he's so talented. I felt utterly disgusted. Chloe was like a toad jumping onto your foot, not biting, but disgusting. The most hateful part was her persistence, she was impossible to shake off. Ethan frowned slightly. You cursed at her? I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh. Of course. He was always like this. The moment Chloe played the victim, he'd immediately reprimand me without asking questions. In the past, I would get angry and sad, stomp my feet arguing with him, then go cry secretly in my room. But not anymore. I lifted my eyelids, looking at Ethan. Yeah, she's right. I did curse at her. However, unexpectedly, Ethan didn't get angry. He lowered his head, his tone gentle, almost fawning. Then she must have done something wrong to make you angry. Then he turned to Chloe and said flatly, Sophia isn't unreasonable. Apologize to her. I was dumbfounded, momentarily thinking I was still dreaming. Chloe was also stunned, her lips trembling after a long pause. Ethan, what did you say? Ethan's face turned cold. I told you to apologize. Chloe's eyes reddened, and she stepped back in disbelief. She bit her lip hard, her voice choked with tears. How could you? I was equally bewildered. Ethan actually told his precious Chloe to apologize to me? Did he lose his mind? A brief thought flashed through my mind. Could it be, he was reborn too? But I quickly dismissed the idea. Impossible. In the last life, Ethan hated me so much, hated me enough to poison me. If he were reborn, he would definitely stay far away from me. He must have some other scheme. I stepped back, watching him warily. My gaze seemed to stab Ethan, and he looked at me, hurt. Sophia, I know I was wrong before. Can you forgive me? Didn't you like me? Can we be together? I'll make up for everything I owed you before. The more he spoke, the more agitated he became, until finally, he stared intently at me, as if looking at a lost treasure found again, his voice laced with a sob. This was too absurd. I couldn't help clenching my fists. In my past life, I pursued him relentlessly, dedicating my entire life, just for words like these. Sadly, even until death, I never heard him say he liked me. This life, when I actually cursed and humiliated him as he claimed, he suddenly says he likes me. What did all my efforts in the past life count for? A sarcastic smile touched my lips, and I said with disgust, be with me? Ethan, who the hell do you think you are, to deserve being with me? One piece of my clothing costs more than you earn in 3 years of hard labor. You're too full of yourself. What makes you think you can be with me? He felt I humiliated him, didn't he? Then let him feel real humiliation. Sure enough, Ethan's face turned white. He said urgently, I don't have money now, but can you wait for me? I'll be rich in the future. He wasn't wrong about that, he did become quite wealthy later. But what did that have to do with me? The hatred and disgust inside me were almost boiling over. I looked at him contemptuously. Ethan, even if every other man on earth died, I would never be with you. After I left that day, Ethan watched me leave, looking utterly devastated. He seemed so pitiful, his shoulders slumped as if his soul had been sucked out. I only felt cold amusement. I didn't know what game Ethan was playing, whether he'd suddenly seen the light or just lost his mind. The Sophia who loved him with all her heart died in the last life. This life, I only felt hatred for him. Without my support, Ethan and Chloe had an even harder time in this life than the last. Ethan's program didn't sell, and his attempt at starting his own business failed. I heard they were so poor they were considering selling blood. But none of that was my concern anymore. The next morning, my phone rang. I picked it up, the screen displayed the name, Liam. This was a former friend. I felt a pang of nostalgia. For me, it had been over a decade since I'd seen these names. When I was with Ethan, he disliked my wealthy friends and didn't allow me to hang out with them. Gradually, my connection with them faded. This Liam was the guy Chloe mentioned who had given me a bag. Our families were friends for generations, and we were close growing up. Answering the call, his excited voice came through. Sophia, I heard you told off that Ethan guy? Before I could reply, he continued excitedly, it's about time someone put him in his place. That idiot sponges off you and gaslights you. We didn't dare say anything before, but thank God you finally came to your senses. I smiled slightly, what's up? Party tonight, usual spot, 8 o'clock. You have to be there. After hanging up, I thought for a long time before remembering the usual spot was a bar we used to frequent. Our group of childhood friends often hung out there. But after getting together with Ethan, I rarely went out. I used to be fiery and assertive, but for love, I completely pulled in my claws. I stopped going to malls, learning for the first time to browse street stalls and markets. I stopped wearing luxury items, carefully choosing clothes that cost only a few dozen yuan, just so Ethan wouldn't frown when I stood beside him. I didn't dare eat at the restaurants I used to frequent. Occasional meals out were just grabbing cheap dumplings with him at hole-in-the-wall places. I turned myself into a timid, careful version of myself, just hoping he would like me a little more. I once loved him so wholeheartedly. When I arrived at the bar that night, Liam was thrilled and kept urging me to drink. I didn't refuse, enjoying the long-lost feeling of ease. These friends were actually quite good, especially Liam. Before my wedding, he even told me if I ever felt wronged, I should go to him, and he'd teach Ethan a lesson for me. He really did confront Ethan later. Back then, I had just found out I was pregnant. The child was an accident from a night Ethan came home drunk. I was overjoyed, thinking a child could win back his heart. But then Chloe found out I was pregnant. She deliberately came to our house to provoke me. When I couldn't stand it anymore and raised my hand to slap her, Ethan returned. He grabbed my wrist and instinctively pushed me away. I fell, hitting my stomach on the corner of a table. I started bleeding immediately and was rushed to the hospital. Back then, I was young and healthy, not yet worn down like later, so the baby was saved. But Chloe wouldn't let up, coming to my house daily to curse me, even calling me deliberately at 2 or 3 in the morning to let me hear her and Ethan being intimate. Ethan's panting, his soft voice calling her name, relax. My stomach churned violently. I covered my mouth and ran to the bathroom, vomiting until I felt like I was turning inside out. Vomiting until tears mixed with stomach acid flowed freely, leaving me shivering and cold all over. Looking up, the woman in the mirror was so pale she looked like she could collapse at any moment. Only her lifeless eyes were filled with red veins. Tears streamed down her face. That day, I lost the baby for good. The doctor told me to rest well and avoid strong emotions. But I couldn't control myself. After learning the baby was gone, Ethan was silent for a long time before just saying, "There will be other children in the future." But I never had another child. He and Chloe, however, did have a child. A happy family. When Liam found out about this, he went to our house and beat the hell out of Ethan. If I hadn't pulled him off in the end, he might have killed him. As I held him back, his eyes were red, and he yelled frantically at Ethan, "What did you promise at the wedding? You said you'd treat her well. She used to smile so much, how the hell could you destroy her like this?" Ethan didn't fight back that time. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looking down without a word. What are you thinking about? Liam nudged me. Drink up. I clinked glasses with him and downed it in one gulp. After a few drinks, Liam's face was flushed. He leaned in close, asking softly, "Are you really over that Ethan guy?" I glanced at him, and his eyes immediately darted away, his ears turning pink. I found it slightly amusing. Liam liked me, I knew. But in my past life, I only had eyes for Ethan, eventually even falling out with Liam because of him. Yet, when Ethan treated me poorly, Liam still stood up for me immediately. This life, if I were to choose someone, I'd hope for someone like him. Only now did I understand that sometimes love isn't enough to solve everything. Ethan and I came from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different circumstances. We were mismatched. Growing up in his kind of family, he had built walls around himself early on, sharp, sensitive, insecure, and cold. Whereas I was raised in comfort, my family giving me the confidence to risk everything for love, which also became the cause of my tragedy. I thought love could conquer all. But I didn't know that someone like Ethan couldn't be thawed by sheer passion. I nodded. Yeah, I was blind before. Liam lowered his head, slowly leaning closer to me, whispering, "Then what about me?" Before he could finish, someone violently grabbed my wrist and pulled me up. Startled, I turned to see Ethan's terrifyingly dark face. His eyes were lowered, his body tense, his calm voice suppressing emotions I couldn't comprehend. "Come with me." He practically dragged me out the door. "Let go." I pushed him hard. "Are you crazy?" But Ethan held me tightly, his grip frighteningly strong. Since my rebirth, his attitude towards me had been docile, almost fawning. Now, his eyes were dark pools, his face expressionless, which was actually quite scary. He rasped, "Sophia, what did you just say?" I paused, then gritted my teeth. "I said I don't like you anymore. I was blind before. Don't like me anymore?" Ethan let out a strange laugh. Then he yanked me closer, staring intently at me, his voice cold as ice shards. "Say that again." I was actually scared by him for a moment. "What you said before, about liking me, wanting to be with me, saying you'd never leave me, was it all fake?" His expression was frantic, but I froze. Wait. In this life, I hadn't said those things yet. Those were words I said to him before we got married in the last life. My whole body started shaking uncontrollably. How could he know? Ethan quickly realized he'd misspoken and subconsciously took a step back. I whispered, "Ethan, you came back too, didn't you?" He remained silent. The midnight wind held past, sweeping fallen leaves across the ground with a desolate rustle. Occasionally, a car passed, its headlights flashing briefly before vanishing into the darkness. "Ethan," I forced a painful smile, "how dare you?" He really had been reborn too. After treating me like that in the past life, how dare he say such things to my face now? I said those things in the last life, and I acted on them. But what was the result? I couldn't rest in peace. This life, I finally decided to move on, to live well. But he ripped open my wounds again, mocking me, telling me I could never escape those miserable days. Ethan looked flustered. "Sophia, listen to me. I was reborn too, but I understand now. Last life, I was such an asshole. I didn't realize I had fallen in love with you long ago. Let me make it up to you, okay?" Slap. Ethan turned his head to the side. I spoke word by word. "Ethan, how dare you? How dare he, after hurting me so badly, casually tell me he had loved me all along?" This slap vented all the hatred in my heart. I used all my strength. The corner of his lip split, bleeding, but he just wiped it casually, his tone calm. "Is that enough? If you're still not satisfied," he grabbed my hand, pressing it against his face, "slap me a few more times." Even as he spoke harsh words, his eyes suddenly reddened, and tears fell straight down. I was somewhat shocked. Ethan had never cried in front of me. In the last life, at his lowest point, when his dad gambled away his hard-earned tuition money and beat him up, he didn't cry when he came to school covered in bruises the next day. When he worked 3 jobs, starving and exhausted to the point of collapsing multiple times, he didn't cry then either. I once thought this man had a heart of stone. I never expected he would shed tears in front of me. Ethan's tears washed away the blood at the corner of his mouth. His wretchedness seemed too much to bear, his body slumped, and he pleaded, "Sophia, come back. If you hate me, you can kill me if you want. Just, don't abandon me." I felt like I was going crazy. "Ethan, did you hit your head? What is wrong with you?" He lowered his head, his voice trembling. "I was too insecure. Back then, I was so defensive, thinking everyone was out to get me. I didn't dare love you, didn't dare believe you truly liked me. I was afraid that after happily accepting you, you'd suddenly tell me one day I wasn't good enough, that you were just playing. Sophia, I was an idiot, I deserve to die. Hit me, curse me, I don't care, I'm begging you, please come back, he sobbed, seemingly releasing all his pent-up emotions. You don't know how I lived through those years after you were gone. I couldn't hold back anymore, sneering. Ethan, don't you love Chloe? Didn't you poison me in the last life precisely for Chloe? Poison? Ethan paused. What poison? Still pretending you don't know? I gripped the roadside railing tightly, otherwise, I couldn't guarantee I wouldn't slap him again. My medicine was switched later on. My health was clearly improving at first, but the more I took it, the worse I got, until finally, I bit my tongue hard, the bitter taste spreading in my mouth. The man I loved killed me for another woman. Even just saying it again caused me unbearable pain. I didn't. Ethan said urgently, I never did. I even told the housekeeper to take good care of you. How could I possibly kill you? We looked at each other, recognition dawning in both our eyes. If it wasn't him, then the only other person with access, the housekeeper, who also wanted me dead. It could only be Chloe. So, it was Chloe who killed me. My feelings were mixed, but it wasn't hard to accept. I was already dead, did it matter who killed me? Even if it wasn't Ethan directly, Chloe killed me for him, so he wasn't blameless. I felt disheartened, an indescribable weariness spreading through my body. Love, hate. I was truly tired. This life, I just wanted to stay far away from him and live well. The autumn rain came suddenly, heavy drops splattering on the ground. Ethan stood drenched and miserable in the rain, his face streaked with rain or perhaps tears. Sophia, please. What about Chloe then? My face was expressionless. You even had a child together in the last life, what about that? Ethan was speechless. After a long pause, he said with difficulty, she got me drunk. We only slept together that one time. I gave a sarcastic smile, saying nothing. Ethan lowered his head further. From beginning to end, the only one I liked was you. I never liked Chloe, he continued. Just then, a female voice suddenly cut through the darkness from the street corner. Then what am I? Chloe emerged from the shadows. She was still wearing that old white dress, now soaked and clinging to her body. Ethan. Her expression was blank, but her eyes glinted with madness. You love her, so what am I? All these years I've stayed by your side, what does that count for? Ethan clenched his fists tightly, the usual gentleness in his eyes replaced solely by hatred when he looked at her. It seemed Chloe hadn't been reborn, she was still the Chloe from the previous life. She hadn't poisoned me yet in this life, so I couldn't even retaliate. Ethan understood this too and said nothing. Chloe froze. You hate me? Ethan, you actually hate me? If it weren't for you constantly stirring up trouble between Sophia and me, we wouldn't have ended up like this. His tone was icy. I stirred up trouble? Chloe laughed. Ethan, she dropped all pretense. If you weren't so insecure and arrogant, how could I have possibly manipulated you? It was your own twisted mind, wanting her but being afraid, and now you're blaming it all on me? Veins pulsed on Ethan's forehead. Sophia. Chloe tilted her head, her expression one of innocent confusion, as if asking an irrelevant question. You clearly have everything. Why do you still have to fight me for Ethan? She didn't seem to need my answer, talking to herself. You have a good background, good looks, everyone flocks around you, loves you, spoils you. They hand you whatever you want, you don't even need to ask. So many people like you, why do you still have to fight me for Ethan? Her voice trembled with gritted teeth. He's all I have. Why, when he's the only one I have, do you still have to take him away? You already have so much. I said calmly, Ethan is a person. Who he likes is his choice. I can't force him. Besides, I never won. I lost completely. Really? Chloe approached me. Only then did I see she had one hand hidden behind her back. A sudden sense of foreboding washed over me. Just as I was about to step back, she whipped out a dagger and lunged straight at me. Go to hell. Her face was twisted, her expression crazed. As long as you're dead, Ethan will be mine again. Sophia, why should you be so happy? You deserve to die. She was too close, I couldn't dodge in time. My wide eyes reflected her bloodshot gaze. Just then, a huge force shoved me aside. The sickening thud of a blade entering flesh was muffled by the rain. Chloe stared blankly at Ethan standing before her. Her hand holding the dagger began to tremble, and she stammered, Ethan. I stumbled back, turning to see the knife buried deep in Ethan's abdomen. Blood seeped out, diluted to pale pink by the rain. He seemed unaware, just smiling weakly at me. As long as you're okay. By the time we got to the hospital, Ethan had completely lost consciousness. He had lost too much blood and went straight into the ICU for emergency treatment. Chloe was taken away by the police who arrived. Ethan didn't wake up until the third day. I walked into the hospital room, looked at him, feeling many words choked in my throat, yet unable to say a single one. He looked very weak, his face pale as paper, but he still managed a difficult smile. "Sophia, you're okay." My emotions were complex. "Why did you take that knife for me?" His lashes lowered. "I don't know. I just didn't want you to get hurt." Chloe's knife was aimed at my heart. Luckily, Ethan was taller, so it missed vital organs. "What are you planning to do?" I asked suddenly. Ethan quickly understood my meaning and smiled bitterly. "Do what needs to be done. Tell the truth." "But she was practically your wife in the last life, the mother of your child." I leaned against the other bed and sat down. He whispered, "But she killed you." I fell silent. Ethan coughed a few times, his features momentarily contorted in pain. Then he rasped, "Sophia, I really know I was wrong. I was so wrong before. If," his voice choked up, his lips trembling uncontrollably, "if I could change, would you be willing?" "No." I interrupted him. "You saved me, but I also died because of you in the last life. At best, we're even. Even if you took a knife for me, it doesn't erase the hurt you caused me." His eyes reddened, and he bit his lip hard to suppress a sob. "But Sophia, you once said you would always love me." I suddenly felt weary, smiling sadly. "Ethan, love runs out. You spent 10 years slowly wearing away my love until nothing was left." Ethan's face turned deathly pale, utterly lost. "Sophia, you can't do this. You were the one who said you loved me first." Before turning to leave, I looked back one last time. Ethan had lost a lot of weight, the hospital gown hung loosely on him. His features were still those of the boy I once loved. But his soul was already old. Maybe we had loved each other, but the timing was wrong. "But now," I whispered softly, "Ethan, I truly don't love you anymore." After leaving the room, I could still hear his desperate cries. "But Sophia, what about me then? What was the point of me coming back, just to hear you say you don't love me anymore? Then I might as well have died in the last life." I lowered my head, my eyes dry. I couldn't cry anymore, because all those tears had dried up in the last life. I strode away, leaving the anguished cries behind me. Until finally, they faded completely. Ethan did not cover for Chloe. She was sentenced to 7 years in prison for attempted murder. The university also expelled her. I heard her mother couldn't handle the shock and committed suicide by jumping off a building. I didn't attend the trial. I had somewhat figured out why Chloe hated me so much. Less about Ethan, and more out of jealousy. Jealous that I had everything, so she tried every means to steal Ethan away, to prove she could win against me too. When she realized she had lost even Ethan, she completely snapped. I heard she went completely mad after learning about her mother's death, becoming incoherent, even verbally abusing the judge during sentencing. Of course, I was the one who arranged for the news of her mother's death to reach her. I also asked my dad to use his connections to ensure Chloe received special attention in prison. I always remembered the poisoning incident from the last life. She eventually had to pay back what she owed me. 3 years later, I married Liam. Liam's family took the wedding very seriously, hosting a grand banquet. All the prominent people in the city were invited. The scene was magnificent. Just as we were about to go on stage, his secretary suddenly hurried over, holding a red envelope. Nothing was written on it. "Mr. Chen, look, there's a check for 2 million in this envelope." I verified it, "It's real, but there's no name." He frowned. "What should we do?" Liam and I exchanged glances. We both guessed who it was from. Ethan was indeed capable. Even after his first business failed, he quickly started over and ultimately succeeded. Liam smiled. "Fine, if someone's eager to send money, just accept it." Just then, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text message. An unknown number, just one sentence out of the blue. "If he doesn't treat you well, come back. I'll always wait for you." Liam scoffed. "Then let him wait. He won't get his chance even in the next life." I deleted the text message right in front of him and blocked the number. "Let's go." I linked my arm with his, smiling slightly. "Everyone's waiting for us." Those sad, tearful nights would eventually pass. And I would never look back. Ethan's perspective. When I saw Sophia again, I froze. Before me was her 20-year-old self, full of vitality, so alive, completely unlike the lifeless shadow in my memory. I had forgotten how long it had been. My gaze was fixed, greedily drinking her in. It had been a long, long time since I'd seen Sophia. In the last life, when the housekeeper told me she was dead, I didn't believe it. Not until I went back and saw her cold body. Strangely, in that instant, I felt nothing. Everything around me disappeared. For a few seconds, I couldn't see or hear anything. It wasn't until they frantically helped me up that I realized I had fallen. I calmly asked the housekeeper, Did she leave any last words? The housekeeper shook his head. Madam didn't say anything. Oh. So she didn't leave a single word for me. Right, we had said everything that needed to be said. When she loved me in our youth, she showered me with sweet words. Later, when we turned against each other, we dragged out every painful wound and flogged each other with them. She cursed me to die a horrible death, I cursed her for degrading herself. What else was there to say? Good or bad, there was nothing left. It was only then I suddenly felt the dull ache beginning in my heart. The pain started small, not sharp, but soon it viciously burrowed everywhere. My heart felt riddled with holes, hurting so much I had to kneel to withstand it. I looked at Sophia, lying quietly on the bed, showing no reaction. If she had seen me like this before, even during our fiercest arguments, she would have definitely come to check on me. She was always that foolish. But this time, she wouldn't even spare me a glance. Right, she was dead. Completely dead. She would never appear before me again. Thinking this, I didn't feel sad. I just felt like I was contemplating someone else's problem. My body and brain had become someone else's, detached from the independently aching heart. What now? She's really causing trouble for me, I thought. I have a meeting tomorrow. Now it'll have to be postponed. After all, I need to arrange her funeral. A sudden tickle in my throat made me cough a few times, only to see the housekeeper's terrified eyes. He stammered, "Sir." I looked down and saw the scarlet speckles on my chest. Whose blood was this? I wondered dimly. Then the itch in my throat became unbearable, and I suddenly spurted a mouthful of blood. The housekeeper panicked, trying to drag me to the hospital. But only one thought remained in my mind. Oh, so this is my blood. After Sophia died, I didn't shed a tear. I even went home to pack her things. She didn't have much. She used to love luxury so much, but now the house felt empty, with only a few non-brand clothes left. Good, I thought. We had been entangled for so long, finally, it could end. Until I opened the cabinet and saw shelves full of liniment. I had been in a car accident while working as a delivery driver back then, injuring my leg, which ached terribly on damp, rainy days. She had specially commissioned this liniment for me. At the time, I laughed at her for buying so much. Her eyes shone brightly as she smiled and replied, "What if they stop making it later?" Unfortunately, after getting married, I rarely came home, and every return ended in arguments. I had only used this liniment a few times, not even half a bottle. It was then I suddenly remembered we did have good times. I had once found her endearing. But in the endless arguments and friction, we both ended up showing only our ugliest sides. I suddenly felt warmth on my face. Reaching up, I touched wetness. I realized that, unknowingly, tears had been streaming down my face. After Sophia died, I didn't forget her as quickly as I thought I would. Instead, she appeared in my dreams day and night, as if deliberately tormenting me. Sometimes it was when we were young, her face flushed red as she handed me the lunchbox. "Ethan, this is Wagyu beef my family's chef made, it's the best." Strange. Back then, I only saw her as arrogant and bossy, filled with annoyance. Now, I suddenly found her blushing face quite cute. Later, I learned that Wagyu beef dish was her favorite. She wanted to share her most beloved thing with me, utterly sincere and without reservation. But back then, I was completely unworthy of such precious affection. A young man's insecure heart is too sensitive, erecting sharp defenses, wounding everyone who tries to get close. Sophia came from a good family, was beautiful, and had so many admirers. I couldn't believe she would actually like someone like me, who had nothing. Rich people played too many games, she must be toying with me. So I treated her worse and worse. I wanted her to leave. She was a rare creature that had never appeared in my barren, dark world, disrupting my entire ecosystem, leaving me flustered. Yet, I despicably sought confirmation of her love again and again in her refusal to back down. How pathetic. And how hateful. After marriage, our relationship seemed to improve slightly. But Chloe constantly reminded me that she and we would never be from the same world. She was right. The bag I excitedly bought her with my first earnings was just an outdated model her admirers had given her back in college. What did I have that was worthy of her affection? Back then, I didn't understand my own feelings. I thought I genuinely disliked her. Yet I couldn't help being drawn to her. I constantly brought Chloe around her, pathologically savoring that bit of affection when I saw her pained expression. See, she cared about me. Later, she changed again in my dreams. She lay on a hospital bed, holding a faceless child, crying desperately. She said, "Ethan, give me back my child." Then I would jolt awake, unable to sleep. This repeated day after day. Sometimes I felt happy, sometimes terrified. I had to seek out a spiritual master. I asked him, Master, does she have some lingering attachment she can't let go of? Do I need to perform a ritual to help her pass on? The master looked at me for a long time and sighed. Patron, he said with clasped hands, his voice full of pity, the one who cannot let go is not her. I sat on the mountain for a long time that day before I understood. It was me who couldn't let go. It turned out I had fallen in love with her long ago. 3 years after Sophia's death, I began to lose my grip on reality. I ignored Chloe and the child completely, letting her rage however she wanted, only stating coldly, you insisted on having this child, it has nothing to do with me. On Sophia's birthday, I washed down 2 bottles of sleeping pills with alcohol. To ensure it was final, I also slit my wrists. The unbearable pain gradually turned numb. Suddenly, a gentle breeze seemed to brush past my eyes. The sunlight was warm, and birds chirped nearby. My hand was suddenly grasped by something soft. Turning my head, the smiling face of 20-year-old Sophia met my eyes. Ethan, she complained with a smile, what took you so long? I stared at her for a long time, my vision blurring with warmth. Then I slowly turned, hugging her tighter and tighter. Startled, she pushed me, what are you doing? You're hurting me. Then she hugged me back, chuckling softly, what's wrong with you? Did you miss me? My voice broke with a sob. Yes, Sophia. I missed you so much. If only I could have stayed in that moment forever. It would have been better than hearing her say, in person, that she didn't love me anymore. In that moment, I knew what it felt like to have 10,000 arrows pierce my heart. Lying in bed, I cried hysterically. If this was the outcome, why let me come back? I thought I could win her back, reverse our tragedy. I never expected to lose her completely. My heart ached so much I couldn't breathe. I cried and laughed. I thought I was going mad. Yet, I felt clearer than ever before. I understood with stark clarity. My rebirth was merely for atonement. It was to taste all the suffering she had endured. Death was not the true departure. Now, she had truly, completely left me. And the rest of my life would be lived in this endless despair, with no escape.